The school parking lot was quiet. Empty. Except for one car, parked under a flickering light. Inside, a woman sat hunched over the steering wheel, her hands wrapped around a mug that had long lost its warmth. She looked at the building she knew so well. The classrooms where she spent hours teaching, laughing, and listening to her students. And yet tonight, she didn't have a home waiting for her. She would sleep in that car, just like she had for weeks. Every little thing in the car told a story. A pile of papers, a backpack worn at the corners, a small blanket folded neatly on the seat. She wasn't careless. She was surviving, holding on to her job, her students, and the life she loved, even when everything else seemed to fall apart. She stared out at the empty playground, the swings swaying slightly in the evening breeze. Her chest tightened, not from regret, but from the burden she carried alone. Every night, she asked herself the same question: how much longer can I keep going like this? And yet, as the streetlight flickered overhead, she stayed. Because walking away wasn't an option. Not for her students. Not for the promise she had made to herself to keep giving, no matter what. Tonight, her secret was safe. But for how long? Her name was Mrs. Emily Carter. To anyone walking into her classroom, she appeared calm, composed, and endlessly patient. She had a way of noticing the small things, a frown that hinted at trouble at home, a hesitant hand raised, a lonely student eating lunch alone. Emily's eyes missed nothing, and her heart carried more than most could see. She was in her mid-30s, with soft brown hair often pulled back hastily into a ponytail, and a faint smudge of chalk dust on her fingers from the morning's lessons. She wasn't perfect, she made mistakes, sometimes mixed up names, and had a habit of staying late until the empty classrooms echoed her steps. Yet, her students felt a warmth from her presence, a quiet steadiness that made them trust her in ways they didn't always understand. Emily loved teaching. It wasn't just a job, it was a calling. The hours she spent planning lessons, reviewing essays, and offering encouragement were hours she gave willingly, often at the cost of her own comfort. Her dedication was well known at school, though no one knew the personal price she paid to be there every day. Her life outside those walls was far less secure. Bills piled up, rent loomed like a shadow, and after a recent divorce, she had no home to return to each night. She carried herself with quiet resilience. Every morning, she woke before sunrise, brushed off exhaustion, and stepped into the classroom ready to guide, listen, and inspire. Her students saw only the teacher who cared, someone who believed in them, who pushed them to write more, to speak up, to imagine beyond the walls of the school. They didn't see the car she slept in, the meals skipped, or the nights she counted coins to make it through until the next paycheck. Emily's life was a careful balance between strength and vulnerability. She gave endlessly, shielding her struggles with a gentle smile. And that morning, as she stood at the classroom door greeting students with a soft, "Good morning," she carried in her heart the quiet determination that had kept her going this long, and the weight of a secret that could change everything if it ever came to light. The day had been long. Emily watched her students shuffle out of the classroom, backpacks swinging, voices full of stories about after-school plans and weekend games. She lingered at her desk, stacking graded papers, letting the hum of the fluorescent lights fill the room. Outside, the late afternoon sun slanted through the windows, making dust motes drift like tiny fireflies. She could feel the familiar knot in her stomach, anxiety she had grown accustomed to but never fully accepted. The school's financial aid forms sat unopened on her desk, reminders of the bills she couldn't pay and the rent she had skipped again. Her car, parked in the lot under that flickering streetlight, waited for her like a patient companion. It was safe there, unnoticed by most, but she couldn't shake the worry that someone might see, or worse, someone she cared about might find out. As she gathered her things, a few students approached her desk hesitantly. One handed her a note folded neatly in half. We wanted to check on you," the student said softly, eyes wide and earnest. Emily's throat tightened. She wanted to smile, to reassure them with a joke or a light comment, but the truth hovered in her chest like a weight too heavy to lift. She looked at them, those faces she had come to know so well, and felt a surge of emotion. They didn't deserve the burden of her struggles. And yet, keeping it hidden came at a cost. Every night in the car left her exhausted, Every skipped meal left her weak, and every coin counted added to the quiet fear that one day she might break. Emily's mind raced. Should she admit it? Could she trust these young people with a secret so personal, so vulnerable? The moral dilemma was clear. She could continue shielding them from her reality, preserving the image of the teacher who had it all together, or she could risk honesty, letting them see the human side, the flawed, struggling side, of someone they admired. Her hand hovered over the note, the paper soft against her fingers. One small choice could change everything. One act of courage could shift the balance between fear and connection, between loneliness and trust. And Emily knew that the decision she made that afternoon wouldn't just affect her. It could leave a mark on the lives of the students who had unknowingly come to care for her, just as much as she cared for them. Emily folded the note carefully, her fingers trembling slightly, and looked up at the group of students standing before her. Their eyes were wide with concern, earnest and unjudging. She realized that the walls she had built around her life, the careful routines she had relied on to keep her secret, were suddenly fragile in the face of their care. I need to tell you something, she whispered, voice low, almost lost in the hum of the fluorescent lights. She took a deep breath, the air catching in her chest as she steadied herself. I don't have a place to live right now. I've been staying in my car. The words hung in the air, heavy but honest. A quiet tension filled the room, not of fear, but of shared understanding. The students didn't recoil or judge. Instead, one of them stepped forward, small and hesitant, and offered a shy smile. We can help, they said simply. Another added, maybe we can figure something out together. Emily's heart thumped in her chest, the weight of months of fear beginning to lift, replaced with a fragile sense of hope she hadn't felt in weeks. She blinked, trying to hold back tears she had buried for too long. I didn't know who to tell, she admitted, her voice shaking. I just wanted to keep going, keep teaching you all, even if it meant sacrificing everything else. The honesty in her own words startled her, the vulnerability both terrifying and liberating. In that moment, she realized that her students weren't just receivers of her care, they were capable of giving back, of lifting her in ways she hadn't allowed herself to imagine. One student gently touched her shoulder. We've got you, Mrs. Carter. You don't have to do this alone. The simplicity of it, the quiet bravery in their offer, was enough to make her catch her breath. For the first time in weeks, Emily felt a lightness she hadn't allowed herself to feel. The secret that had felt like a chain around her life was no longer entirely hers to carry. And though she didn't know exactly how everything would unfold, she made a choice that afternoon. She would let others in, and in doing so, she discovered that even the smallest act of honesty could bring unexpected courage, connection, and care. By the next evening, Emily found herself standing in the parking lot again, the same car waiting quietly under the streetlight. Only now, it felt different. The weight she had carried alone for weeks had shifted. Inside, she noticed a small envelope tucked under the windshield wiper, neat and deliberate. She opened it and found a note from her students. We're here for you. Always. Her chest tightened with emotion, and for the first time, the car felt less like a shelter and more like a bridge, a place connecting her to the people who truly cared. Over the next few days, small gestures began to appear, a thermos of soup left in the teacher's lounge, gift cards tucked into her mailbox, and quiet offers from colleagues to help in ways she had never imagined possible. Emily began to see a transformation in herself as well. She smiled more easily in the mornings, lingered with students without the heavy undercurrent of exhaustion, and allowed herself to rest without guilt. Her students noticed the change too. Their own faces brightened, their laughter echoed more freely through the hallways. A mutual sense of trust and respect grew stronger, the invisible barriers between teacher and students softening with each act of care. The weeks that followed carried an unexpected sense of balance. Emily still faced challenges, bills, appointments, and the lingering reality of her past struggles, but the isolation that had felt suffocating began to lift. She realized that the courage it had taken to share her truth had not only changed her own life, but had quietly inspired her students as well. They had witnessed vulnerability met with compassion, struggle met with support, and a teacher who never stopped believing in the goodness of people. Emily looked at her reflection in the rearview mirror one evening, the car parked under the same flickering light, and smiled. She was still Emily Carter, the teacher who lived in her car. But now she was also Emily Carter, the teacher who had discovered the extraordinary strength of letting others in. And in that small, simple shift, her world began to feel a little warmer, a little safer, and a little more full of hope. Emily realized that courage wasn't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it was quiet, simply letting someone see your truth, even when it felt uncomfortable, even when the world seemed small and heavy. In choosing honesty over fear, she discovered that connection could heal in ways money, status, or appearances never could. The smallest gestures of kindness, shared without expectation, had the power to transform lives, hers and those around her, reminding her that vulnerability could become strength when met with empathy and care. Emily stood at the edge of the playground, watching her students run and laugh under the golden evening light. She remembered the fear she had carried, the quiet nights in her car, the sense that no one could truly understand. Now, seeing the small hands waving toward her, the smiles unguarded and bright, she felt a warmth she hadn't known she was missing. She understood, in a way words couldn't capture, that shared compassion had created a ripple far beyond what she could measure. This story is a reminder that even the simplest act of honesty, of allowing others in, can change a life in ways we never imagine. If you believe that quiet courage and kindness have the power to transform, share this story. Let it inspire someone else today. And if you want to discover more real-life moments that reveal the strength of human empathy, subscribe to the Empathy Room, where every story is a chance to feel, reflect, and connect. Emily turned back to the playground one last time, the soft hum of laughter filling the air. She smiled, knowing that sometimes the most extraordinary acts of love begin in the quietest corners of life, and that every small choice to care can echo in ways we never forget.